The gentleman who called and suggested that, I think he was suggesting that the criminal justice system is racist because black people who are behind bars having dealt crack, and at one time there was greater punishment for crack than there was for powder. That discrepancy has been eliminated, but I'll tell you who did not eliminate it when asked to do so. Bill Clinton. Oh, yeah. Black lawmakers came to him and said, this is not fair. You're punished more severely for dealing crack than you were dealing powder cocaine. The crack dealers were more likely to be black. The powder cocaine ones were more likely to be white. And as a result, you're finding this kind of difference in our criminal justice system. It's not fair. Please change it. And Clinton didn't do it. And the reason he didn't do it is because he wanted to be perceived as tough on crime, not a squishy, typical Democrat, and didn't do it. And they still love him. And when my mom used to come on my show every Friday, as she did for years, by the way, my show's never been the same without her, but we discussed this allegation that the CIA put crack in the inner city, an allegation that's been refuted by the LA Times, New York Times, and the Washington Post. And they would love, love, love to have found it because they all hated Ronald Reagan. And they said, yeah, Ronald Reagan used the Contras, and the Contras were dealing drugs, but it had nothing to do with it starting it or somehow elevating it. It was already going on. And yeah, they looked the other way because they thought there was a higher purpose. I'm not saying it was good or bad. I'm just saying you cannot make the argument that it was the CIA that put drugs into the inner city, which is what Gary Webb, that former reporter, said with the Mercury Sun. There was even a movie about it starring Robert Downey Jr. Anyway, the LA Times, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, all Reagan haters would have loved to confirm the allegation that was made by people like Maxine Waters, denied by the CIA. In fact, the CIA came out to LA and did a town hall addressing the allegation that they put drugs in the inner city. When has a CIA director come to a town and addressed angry mobs claiming that they put drugs in the inner city? And he stood there and he took it and answered every question. People weren't satisfied. But he said, we would put drugs in the inner city. Why would we do? What would be the point in doing that? And my mother said, even if they did, quote, put drugs in the inner city, they can't make me take them. They can't make me use them. They can't make me deal them. They can't make me sell them. We need to take responsibility, she said. So that's my long answer to you, sir, and I appreciate the call. I really do. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Andrew is in Stanhope, New Jersey. Andrew, you're on the Larry Otis Show. Always nice to hear from you.
Hey, what's up, Larry?
How you doing?
The caller that was talking about the disparity between crack and powder cocaine. I'm old enough to have lived through the 80s. Maybe he's too young, but crack cocaine devastated black inner city, Newark, in New York City, Brooklyn, Bronx. And when those stricter laws came in, I was so happy what I saw, not because I'm racist, the opposite. There were drug dealers when I would drive through Newark prior to the stricter laws, and then when those were enacted, just like overnight, it just dramatically dropped. There used to be like several guys would try to wave me down to sell drugs, and then it almost disappeared. There would be a few, but it dramatically, and that helped the poorest, lowest income black people in the housing projects in Newark and cities all over. So it helped the people. Just like I make a comparison, like most of the people in the high crime areas that are black, they don't want less cops. They want more cops because they're not criminals. They're victims, and their sons are victims of the shootings. And so I just want to say that's why the disparity, and you always point out that the NAACP or the Black Caucus supported it, and black Democrats in New York City totally supported it and campaigned for it because it was ravaging communities, and now it's no longer, which is great. And lastly, one time I did interview an NAACP leader, Summit, New Jersey, about 4 years ago. They had a rally, like an anti-violence by the police. And I asked them, like what you would say, I would say, well, if your goal is to help the advancement of colored people, why aren't you talking about the out-of-wedlock birth rate? And he looked real strange, like he agreed with me. I said, that's Obama and others admit that's more devastating or more harmful than racism. And he said, well, my friend, the professor in Rutgers, Dr. Price, he started that in Newark, which is great, but then he passed away soon after. Mm-hmm. So they admit that that's the number one problem, yet they don't focus on it. They don't have, like, free counseling. They don't, what they were vital. They were great in the past, but the past 30 years, they're, like a parody. Why don't they have services for job where African American people could go in for job search, job training, college prep for drug, help the people? Like, how are they actually helping the people now? Just going to cocktail parties or having liberal.
Right. And Andrew, thanks for calling, as always. And you, of course, point out something really important. And community leaders wanted stiffer penalties for those dealing crack. There were pastors in New York demanding things be done. And when Ronald Reagan signed more strict anti-drug laws, standing right behind him as he signed the bill was Charlie Rangel, the longtime congressman from Harlem. Now, Rangel did not support the 1994 crime bill, but more than half of the Congressional Black Caucus, as Andrew pointed out, did. Now, how is that racist if the majority of black congresspersons supported this racist law? Anyway, thank you very much for calling.